Hey guys, I just graded Lamar Jackson's game again, made the video. I didn't think it was a particularly exciting game from Lamar's standpoint or from just a general standpoint. That being said, I thought it was important to have a Lamar video on the channel just because he's so unique, and I could explain a little bit of how I grade Lamar because he's different than, say, a pocket passing quarterback. Anyhow, I guess there were some things to be excited about. He did display some of the traits that, really can get somebody going, some of the things that make him unique. He also left a lot of points on the board. I think I counted 3 touchdowns that the Ravens could have or should have had, but Lamar just couldn't hit wide open dudes. And that's kind of the price you pay, right? That's the trade-off. Anyway, you've heard me talk enough. Let me not ramble. Let's get to the tape.
Alright, so here, this is obviously good pocket manipulation by Lamar Jackson, but I grade this as a negative run. First of all, if you're going to lose yardage on a play, do it with the ball in the hands of a playmaker, not your quarterback. And I know Lamar Jackson's a better playmaker than most wide receivers, much less most of his wide receivers. But I would rather see Kenyon Drake take a big fucking hit through the back than Lamar Jackson, because there are more Kenyon Drakes, and theoretically, if you are a believer in Lamar Jackson, there are not many Lamar Jacksons. Even if there were, the amount of information they have to process to be able to actually step in and play quarterback is ridiculous. So protect your quarterback. If you're going to get hit for a loss, let a receiver do it. Here, this is another really good pocket manipulation. Lamar's pocket presence has actually gotten a lot better. So it looks clean. You got one coming free. He sees it, steps right through, and then makes one of the worst throws you'll ever see in your life. It's a bad throw, obviously. I don't think it needs to be said. With a plus move. A plus move is an abbreviation that I use for a positive pocket movement or manipulation. This can be anything from looking somebody off to pulling the ball at the right time in an RPO to escaping a sack. There's another plus move and another bad throw. I don't have the tight copy, but on the tight copy that throw looks much worse. Hopefully we don't need the all-22 too much, because I'd like to get this out first thing in the morning today on Tuesday. On a drive 2. Drive 2 starts here with a run, and then on second down here, Lamar is going to make a really good play. He boots directly into a blitz. That's not his fault, but he still manages to get the ball into the out. It's a pedestrian throw. It's not that hard, but it's really hard to do with a defender in your face, so he gets a plus movement. See? Another plus move. Those are really key when grading a guy like Lamar, and it's actually a metric that I invented in large part because of guys like Lamar. Now this is Lamar's first legitimately good throw of the game. It is a solid caliber throw. It's 15 yards downfield. It is a curl, but he uses leverage properly. The ball placement is correct. You do that 10 times a drive, you're going to score some touchdowns. Honestly, you do that 6 times a drive, you're going to score some touchdowns. Here, personally, I would have let the running back take this ball. I know that not pocket, but the blocking. See, it's weird in RPOs because you kind of get a pocket for the running back. I know the pocket looks messy, but you've got a free blocker. I would let him take this and let him try to make something of it rather than try to juke out 3 defenders myself. It's a negative run. Here, this is a good pedestrian throw. Again, pedestrian is not a bad thing. People get mad at me every week. There's also a plus movement, by the way, because he did have... Is that 92? I think that's passing y'all. Could be on Yamada. Doesn't matter. Bearing down on him. So, plus move, pedestrian throw. That's a positive play. People get really mad at me every week when I call routine throws pedestrian. As you'll see at the end, it is a term of art. There is a chart that I am trying to fill out that I have invented, basically. A pedestrian throw is a routine throw. You can also fill in efficient or neutral. Here, I graded this as a really good throw. It was a little bit more open on the tight copy than you would imagine. Let's see if I can actually break it down for you here. So, he's got about 1.5 yards of separation here, and then this defensive back has absolutely no play on it. He's about 15 or 10, 15 yards away. So there's really nobody covering him on that in this exact hole. However, he did fit it in a loose triple coverage. So it's a good throw. Really good. On the verge of great. I use solid and good interchangeably the same way I use pedestrian and routine or expected interchangeably. And note that there's nothing wrong with a pedestrian or routine or expected play. It's not positive nor negative. Here, I gave Lamar a neutral run. He gets a couple yards. It's as effective as a checkdown would be. It's like the pedestrian throw of running. It's solid. Go ahead. Fine. Now here, this play is very... This video does not purport at all to be the definitive evaluation of Lamar Jackson, but this play is kind of a microcosm of his effect on the passing game. This is a pretty easy throw. Like, if he had just been standing still in the pocket and likely was this wide open, and he just threw it down the middle on a seam to him, I would say that's like a real good, borderline great throw. But because Lamar Jackson does this run action and they do this odd, like, 3-man personal protector, like, moving offensive line with him, all of the Saints players bite because they think it's a run. It's not until late that everybody realizes, shit, this is a one-man pass route, and he's wide open. Tyrann Mathieu played a terrible game, and this snap was no exception. So Lamar Jackson's gravity, if you will, the attention he draws, his name alone, is what makes this play so efficient. It's what creates such significant separation. Here we go. I love when they give me the all-22 in the condensed game. It saves me so much time. You'll see, Isaiah Likely didn't break away because he was faster. He didn't break away because he was clever. He broke away because everybody started running towards Lamar. So, you give him a plus move for that. You upgrade the throw from good to definitely great. And in certain cases, you can add other point modifiers. Alright, we're picking up drive 3 on 1, 2. We're picking up drive 3 on down 2. Ravens are running the ball up the gut. Now on 3rd down. Just throw an easy little swing pass, and the Saints are completely and totally unprepared for it. I think there was another miscommunication amongst their safeties. It's a routine expected throw, nothing to it. Defy any of you to argue with me. If I sound defensive, if I sound like I'm trying to couch everything I say, know that I've made 2 videos the last 2 weeks, and they can't even agree on what a pedestrian throw is. Here, Lamar has a clean pocket, and this ball is interceptable. What is interceptable? This wasn't picked. Well, he misses, and it hits the fingertips of the defensive back. See there, flat palm. I know, it's terrible resolution, but this is the only way I know how to record games. If I try to do this on NFL.com, everything goes fucky because NFL.com is terrible. I don't think that it would have been a crazy catch for that defensive back to make that interception. It would have been a solid, good play, but here we go. This play pissed me off to no end last night. I saw one woman on Twitter who works for the NFL Network say that this is one of the best quarterback plays you'll see all season. I don't get it. I graded this play as extremely negative. So, full disclosure, I graded this play as a fumble, which happened. I graded this play as a negative 0.5 bonus modifier, which is effectively the same as half of a sack, because I believe that Lamar Jackson opened himself up to a negative sack. I then gave him a plus movement for recovering the fumble, and another one for escaping the pocket, and then I gave him a bad throw for throwing extremely late in the down. Extremely late, and in underthrowing it. So, let's start right here. Right here, Lamar is about 9/10 of the way down the street to getting a negative sack. right? He's got open receivers, like this one here. He's got an open running lane, like this one here. And instead, he is completely oblivious to the defensive end feet from him. Let's press play. Right here is where Cam Jordan fucks up. He's going to try, instead of wrapping and pulling through Lamar Jackson, he's going to try to throw this arm around his head and rip him down. That's just really, really bad tackling. And he misses. And then when he comes around here, he tries to rip him down again rather than going through him. And I know you don't want to go through him because you don't want that roughing the passer. But he misses with this right hand. He's trying to grab the shoulder, and instead it just slips, and he doesn't. Lamar Jackson didn't do anything to break that sack. Cam Jordan just fucked up. The fumble is self-explanatory. I don't need to tell you about the fumble. Like, a fumble is a fumble, right? I know he lost the ball after he bumped his offensive lineman, but he could have simply not dropped the ball, in which case the ball wouldn't have been in harm's way. Now, if you can see this blur, this white blur, is further downfield gaining separation from this black blur. If this ball is properly thrown, he actually has a touchdown on his hands. But you can see that this white blur stops being a blur because it stops and turns around to wait for the ball. The ball is here, where my mouse is. And the receiver is already squared up and starting to jump. Like, that ball is significantly behind. It is a bad throw. A smiteful person, somebody who wanted to tear Lamar Jackson apart, would probably call that a pickable, because I think that the defensive back had as good, if not better, a chance to make a play on that ball than Deshaun Jackson did. Part of this calculus is don't throw a jump ball to a 35-year-old 5'10 receiver late in the down, like, especially when he's got over-the-top leverage. So this is a bad throw. This is a bad idea. This is bad pocket awareness. This is bad ball security. It is mitigated by 2 instances of positive pocket movement, but this is a bad play. If you do this play 100 times, I would say probably 70% of the time, 80% of the time, something bad happens, and I would say 20% of the time, something very bad happens. I think most of the time this play is a sack. I would think anytime it's not a sack, it's probably an incompletion. And I think that there are a handful of instances in which this is an interception or a fumble. So it was particularly frustrating when I saw lots of people who don't know what they're doing calling this a great play or saying that this is proof Lamar Jackson's great. It displays a lot of amazing talent. It displays incredible traits. But just as a measure of performance, that is bad. That's a bad thing to do. It's just as hard to go 0-5 in a gambling contest as it is to go 5-0, right? But you'd much rather do one than the other. It's just as hard to do that as it is to do a lot of great plays. But even if you're successful in doing what he just did, it's bad. So don't do it. On to drive 5. All right, little play action. Love to see it. Wide open, just misses the throw. Another bad throw. Lamar's deep ball, this year especially, has been atrocious. And I know it's never been great, but it's been manageable in the past. This year, no. This is a solid throw. He's late on the throw, and it comes back because of a penalty. But to be able to drive the ball to the outside with that kind of accuracy is good. Now, I would have rather he puts the ball upfield because there's yak to be had. I would have rather he throws the ball earlier because there's yak to be had and larger windows to exploit. But it doesn't change the fact that what he did was good. Now here, this is another instance of why we use plus pocket moves. Right here, the ball needs to be out of his hands. To not have the ball come out of your hands is poor pocket awareness. However, agility dodges a sack. Creativity and arm angles dodge a stack and turn that into a completion. So it's a pedestrian throw, but it's got 2 plus moves. This is why we use abbreviations, kids. I don't think that that's a plus move because I don't think it was necessary. Also, he threw to the same guy after the movement that he would have before the movement. It's a pedestrian throw. Solid. Good job noticing the open guy. And here we got a neutral run. Again, a neutral run is about as runs are a lot more effect based than, or how about this? I typically don't look at results when I look at a passing play. When I look at a running play, I start with results, and then I try to find mitigating factors. Now this is, see, by that exact logic, that's a positive run play. I grade that the same as I would if he had made a good throw. And here's a pedestrian throw, a simple RPO. Now, you do get a linebacker biting up on Lamar a little bit, which is why this RPO is open, but it's still just an RPO. You can run an RPO from any offense with any mobility of quarterback, and it's going to be the same exact read and throw. So, here, you got another open dude deep, and he just fucking misses. It's a bad throw. Here, Lamar breaks a tackle, so we're going to call that a plus move because we don't have a tackle breaking box. But it's also a positive run because after he breaks that tackle, he rips off something nice. Here, this is another run that I would deem negative because, again, if you don't have it, first of all, everything's blocked up, right? There's a man for every hat. So I would expect him to get 5-10 yards. More like 5. Additionally, if you're not going to get yards, just give it to Kenyon Drake and let him pound through this hole. He's actually got a shot at a pretty decent gain if he doesn't get ripped down there by 92. So that's a negative run. And again, runs are results based. Pedestrian throw. Good job getting the ball out in the flat. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. He did everything right. And you don't get credit for doing easy things right. Nobody gives you a lollipop for wiping your butt anymore, right? They stopped doing that when you were like 3. So I'm not going to give points. I'm not going to give positive play percentage for throwing the flat in time the way you're supposed to. It's just that simple. Your mom will still yell at you if you forget to wipe your butt, though. A lot of people will. And that's why I give bad throws on missed pedestrian plays. All right, I think we're on drive 6? Could be 7. It doesn't really matter. All right, this game is starting to get out of hand, which is so sad because it's 14-3. But the Saints just looked listless all day. So we've probably got another quarter of actually grading because after that it just becomes garbage time. Like, as you can see, we're already reaching the point where the Ravens kind of would like to not throw the ball. Here, Lamar has plenty of time and hits the pedestrian throw. Yes, he takes a hit, and usually that could be a plus move. However, he had the pedestrian throw whether or not he wanted to take it. Like, it was there from the start. He didn't need to put himself in harm's way. He gained nothing by waiting. It was just slow processing. All right, Lamar chooses to hold it again, and it's a neutral run. Gets that first down. Solid. Nothing wrong with it. Exactly what the play caller thought would happen when he drew it up. Same here. Expected throw. Pedestrian throw. Honestly, what's more impressive is that Patrick Ricard ceded yards to the defense and then got them back. Another just 5-yard, ripped it right out of the playbook play. Like, exactly like they thought it would go. And a quarterback sneak. So that's 2 neutral runs in a row here. That's a little bit of good pocket movement and then some unnecessary shit and then a bad throw. He puts this behind. So I'll give him a plus move and a bad. Lamar navigated the pocket about as well as he ever does in this game. Here, not so much. Well, actually, he navigates his pocket really well because he avoids a sure blitz, but then he misses a sure touchdown. All you got to do is hit these guys. Lamar Jackson has left at least 2 touchdowns, probably a third on the board already today, simply because he cannot hit wide open receivers, and that is the frustration. I understand people saying things like Lamar plays the passing game on easy mode because everybody gets sucked in by his legs. However, he still fails on easy mode. He's on a completely other tier of passing from almost every quarterback in the NFL, in a bad way. So, personally, I'm not thrilled with it. So Lamar with a little play action boot, and he decides to just try to get back to the line of scrimmage and say screw it. So it's a neutral run. It's kind of like a throwaway. In fact, I think it's probably better graded as a throwaway. This is probably better graded as a neutral run. Here's a plus move. He fights through a muddy pocket, but he just misses another throw. And it looks like a duck coming out as well. This doesn't need to be a great throw, right? His tight end's pretty damn open. He can hang that ball up there a little bit, and he just can't make the throws. He's just missing. So, at this point, it's about to be game over, right? The Ravens are just running down the Saints' throat, and there's not a lot you can really... They don't have the time left in this game, with 12 minutes in the fourth quarter, to not only stop the Ravens, but also lead their own scoring drives to take a lead. So it's becoming increasingly clear that the Ravens are just going to run the ball, churn the clock, try to complete high percentage completions. This is a good positive run by Lamar, and he even gets, I'll give him a bonus point because it's more like a great throw than a good throw. The way that he sifts through his line, and by which I mean stiff-arming Morgan Moses to the ground, the way that he dodges tacklers, I think he made 3 people miss there. That's excellent work. So that is a plus run with a bonus. .47 rushing yards. I can't tell if the Saints offensive line is in disarray or if the Ravens defense is back. I lean towards the latter, but the former doesn't look great either. I know that the option implicates the quarterback a little bit. I just don't care. I don't grade options. Here, this pedestrian throw almost gets picked off in a turn of ultimate poetic injustice. Just like Patrick Mahomes had last night on Sunday Night Football. But, as I said, there's just not enough time. There's 8.5 minutes for the Saints to score 2 touchdowns. The Saints haven't done that in 3 quarters. It's looking like game over. Alright, so you missed a touchdown drive by the Ravens that lasted 2 5-yard running plays, roughly. There were no throws, there were no quarterback runs. I didn't feel the need to grade it. On first down, Lamar with a pedestrian run. On second down, Lamar with a good run. At this point, I've stopped grading because the game is over. But I'm telling you what I would have graded had these plays been relevant. I don't think that there's really much to glean from garbage time because what the defense is trying to do and what the offense are trying to do are so differently aligned from what is typical in a game, what will win you football games. I just don't think it's helpful. And quite frankly, any time they ask Lamar to do anything, I think that they're hurting their chances of winning long term from here on out through this game. Like, if you ask him to throw, you're stopping the clock. And if you ask him to run, why would you risk getting him hurt? So, let's go to the chart, because this game is wraps.
So I made one change to the live grading that I did while watching the Monday Night Football broadcast. I changed that one neutral run to a throwaway because while it wasn't a throwaway, it was a running throwaway. When you just scamper to the line of scrimmage and hold the ball out of bounds rather than throw it out of bounds, it's the same fucking effect. It doesn't matter if it's your legs or your arm. That means that Lamar Jackson had a game with 0 elite plays. 0 elite passes at the least, right? I think that we can all agree upon that. He had one great throw. That touchdown throw on the sprint sweep play action, effectively. They ran play action with Lamar Jackson. Really creative stuff that you can really only do with a guy like Lamar Jackson or a Justin Fields or a Josh Allen, right? Somebody who truly threatens you as a runner on his own. He had 2 solid throws, although they were both early in the game. 9 pedestrian passes, which is honestly kind of low for pedestrian passes just in terms of volume, but in terms of rate, perfectly normal. 8 bad throws, which is a high rate, and the pickable ball. So his accuracy percentage was only 57%, and even for Lamar Jackson, that's very bad. Accuracy percentage is the percentage of his aimed passes, which are on target within a reasonable degree. Now, some passes are caught that are not reasonably caught. That's called a great catch or a spectacular catch. There's a reason that there's a rating for it in Madden. There's a reason that we watch highlights, right? Frankly, there's a reason that guys like Brandon Lloyd and Nuke Hopkins have successful careers, despite not necessarily being the fastest or the biggest. Even when you consider his running, Lamar Jackson wasn't particularly special in this game. He only produced a positive play, be it running or throwing, on 17.65% of his dropbacks. He had negative plays on 41.2% of his dropbacks, which is a really, really high rate. Much higher than his season average, which you can see over here. Now, in a typical game of the 6 that I've graded, I haven't graded whoever he played week 6, and I didn't grade week 1 against the Jets. Other than that, Lamar Jackson has produced a positive play on 26% of his dropbacks. So he's about 11% under par for his season in positive plays in this particular game. He's also about 12% over par when it comes to negative plays. So this was a bad game on both fronts for him. He did only have about 39% cheap plays, which are neutral runs, pedestrian throws, those expected things that you think that every quarterback should always do. And maybe they don't always do it, but they kind of should. Now, his fumble on the miraculously talented but incredibly bad play, that does hurt his grade a little bit, right? Without it, this is probably a D performance rather than an F performance, and I still lean towards more of a D- than an F. However, that chasm between the negative plays and the positive plays is just so steep. Overall, I don't think that any Ravens fan is running to the podium to hang their hat on this performance by Lamar Jackson, and I don't think that it's indicative of Lamar Jackson. As I said earlier, this is a bad game by his standards. This game is not indicative of his normal play, right? It's below average. For him, it's also very bad, generally. I think that we see elements of what makes Lamar Jackson such a lightning rod in this game. Like, if you're impressed by traits rather than by what actually happens, if you're the kind of person that loves Aaron Rodgers and kind of doesn't love Tom Brady, you probably see that terrible play where he fumbles and throws the ball deep but inaccurately, and you say, oh my god, he got the ball down there so effortlessly. He flicks his wrist and it goes 50 yards. That's crazy. And you see him recover that fumble and sprint out towards the sideline beforehand, and you're like, wow, look at this dude. He's so fast. He picked that ball up like it's nothing. He's a real athlete. He's a wide receiver who plays quarterback. But if you actually look at what happened, if you actually look at what he did with that talent, it's very negative. And traits are really important. Believe me, I get knocked all the time for putting too much weight into traits. Ask Tua Stans how I feel about traits. But traits without direction, traits without consistency, precision are, Rex Grossman, JP Lossman, dudes with cannon arms who can't fucking do anything. And there are plenty of dudes with cannon arms and great mobility who can't do anything. Look at Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs has a pretty decent arm, and he's got really good mobility, and he's very strong. And he's not starting in the NFL, and he never will. Why? because he didn't find Greg Roman, but because traits aren't everything. And there are myriad other examples. Anyway, I'm sorry that this video wasn't as interesting. I didn't have as much to say, and I'm not really fighting against any general zeitgeist on this. But I did think it was important to have a Lamar Jackson video on here, just because grading him is so much different than grading most everybody else, Justin Fields now being an exception. Anyway, who should I do next? I don't know. I think I got 1 or 2 more breakdowns in me this week before we get to next week. Hit me in the comments. Let me know. And if you want to talk ball, if you disagree with any of the grades, like always, just throw a timestamp in there, you know? Say, I disagree with your grade at this time, because here's why, and we could talk about it. I could be swayed. I mean, if you're gonna just come in and tell me about how I'm underestimating the value of Lamar Jackson's leadership, or you know, try to get somehow political or something, then I'm not gonna be swayed. I'm probably gonna be a little offended. But if you want to talk ball, if you got a legitimate disagreement there, let's hear it. You know, I'm not perfect at this. I'm just doing the actual work. All right, until next time, Asta.